Hey, Durant here, and today I'm going to talk about using water while you're tattooing and how if you turn on your tap water, you could be making a very serious mistake.
Speaking of water, more than 1 million Californians live in areas with unsafe drinking water. That water has high levels of arsenic.
A new and very serious problem among people getting tattoos. Rapidly growing mycobacteria infections are increasing in frequency. The cause is a bug called Mycobacteria coloni, a type of fungus found in tap water.
There are tens of thousands of different types. Mostly microscopic in size, hundreds, even thousands can be found in a single drop of water.
So if we know tap water is bad to use while you're tattooing, what are your options? And I have a couple of them here. You have distilled water, and this is a jug that I bought for a little over $1. So you can get this size for really cheap. It's not that expensive. A little more expensive is drinking water, but both of these have gone through a process that will get rid of all the bugs and make it safer to use. The drinking water goes through a filtering process.
This is accomplished by using multimedia filters, which are tanks or vessels containing a series of layered granular materials. These materials can be anthracite, garnet, sand, pebbles, and/or gravel, which are assembled in layers. The filters remove sand, twigs, seaweed, and other particles from the seawater.
And the distilled water gets distilled. Distillation process.
Distillation. Distillation is the process of heating a liquid to form its vapors and then condensing the vapors to form the liquid. It is used to separate two or more substances present in a liquid or for purification of water.
If you decide not to use water, there's some other things you can use, like witch hazel, and things like keep it wet, which are made out of witch hazel, and you can also use glycerin. And glycerin, witch hazel, and rubbing alcohol are all ingredients of ink. So you can use rubbing alcohol. It's diluted, so you add water to it, because you don't want to use too much alcohol because it will dry out the tattoo, and you can actually give chemical burns by using too much alcohol. Let me show you some areas where you can get in trouble, and I will show you how you can avoid those areas. Your rinse cup. You don't want to waste water. You figure, oh, I'm just using it to rinse out ink, but then you put your needles in there and you fill up your color cup with the dirty water, and then you tattoo somebody with it. So to avoid that, what you want to do is use some clean water, purified water, or distilled water. Fill up your rinse cup with clean water. I read a report where a shop had done everything correctly, and the inspectors came in and checked out the shop once they had an incident, and they had found out that the shop did everything correctly, but it was actually contaminated ink that was causing the problem. So you need to make sure you buy your ink from a dealer that has high standards, because the ink can actually be contaminated at the factory before it is shipped out. So you could open this up, it'll be all sealed, everything's going to look correct, but it's going to be contaminated. So while you're working, your ink will tend to dry out. So you might want to add some water to that, which again, you could just go with purified water or distilled water. Another option is to use witch hazel. Witch hazel is what's used for some of these solutions to keep your ink from drying out, which you could also use one of these to prevent your ink from drying out, or to dilute your ink a little bit. Instead of using water, you can just use a squirt of witch hazel or some, keep it wet. Another option you have is to use a small amount of glycerin. And glycerin attracts water, keeps things from drying out, so you can use that to keep your ink from drying out on you. And another place that you have to be careful of is things like your green soap bottle, because you add water to your green soap. You have to make sure that your water is clean and not contaminated. Now, green soap has 30% alcohol in it, but alcohol usually will kill things, but if you dilute it with water, then it's not going to be as strong. So the same thing goes for your other bottles, like rubbing alcohol. Make sure you use safe practices when you're tattooing. Like they say, think before you ink. And remember, don't use tap water when you are tattooing. Make sure it is purified water or distilled water.